Hello, dear friends. It's Dr. Sarah, and welcome to the third and final video in our series of How do you find quality essential oils? Now, finding quality essential oils sounds like it should be a somewhat easy thing to do. Unfortunately, due to differing opinions on what constitutes an essential oil, quality and what people are looking for has made this complex, and there's debates among experts as well as essential oil consumers. So I started this series to help clarify this confusion for both new and experienced users. To do a little recap before we jump into our topic today, in part one, we reviewed the various factors that impact the selection of essential oil brands for specific individuals. These include their values, the brand's reputation, the price of the essential oils, a community engagement, if some have that and some don't, as being part of the company, and their marketing strategies. I talked about my goal to remain brand neutral when I'm speaking on my main website, and this is to focus on the scientific aspects of essential oils to reach a broader audience of everyone that loves aromatherapy and using their essential oils and aromatic allies. And this means that there's no distraction on selling, marketing, or introducing biases of specific oil companies. I also discussed research using essential oils, which actually prioritize standardization of compounds based on their biological properties. There's not a lot of information in the actual articles on the research about their purity or their quality, though we can probably assume that they have been tested as such. Now, in part two, I went more into standardization versus purity and quality of essential oils. Some of the key points were that essential oils' power, purity, and quality can be altered by their production, their manufacturing, and their distribution. We talked about how in the United States, essential oils are not regulated for standards, quality, or purity, but they are monitored by the FDA for label accuracy and for adverse events that occur post-marketing. There are standards set up by key global organizations like ISO and AFNR, which require that essential oils have specific percentages of active constituents in order to be standardized. Standardized essential oils do not mean that the oil is pure. They could be mixed with synthetic fragrances or chemicals in order to get that spike of a specific compound that's present for that essential oil. But at the same time, high quality essential oils may not meet consensus standards of specific compounds. So you can have a standardized oil that is not pure, and you can have a pure essential oil that is not standardized. And what we want oftentimes is both or depends on the situation. So now what I want to do is discuss some of the characteristics that I've learned to consider in all my years using essential oils and studying the research when choosing quality essential oils and how I vet them personally. So we're going to talk about my initial considerations and how I picked my essential oil brand, how to ensure quality control from the seed to the label. So many people are just looking at the essential oil. They're not considering how it was planted and sourced. We want to look for verification testing if what's in the bottle is in the bottle and what the chemical constituents are. Certificates of analysis. These are a big topic, and I want to talk about what they do guarantee and what they don't, because there's a lot of misunderstanding that these are the end all be all for essential oil quality control. And then finally, I'm just going to do a brief review of the safe use of essential oils. So as always, you guys know that the research links, the references, and past video blogs and articles can be found in the accompanying article to this video, as well as in the resource section at the end. So let's get started. I want to talk about my initial search for quality essential oils. So I actually began my journey as an essential oil skeptic. I was a pharmacy technician at the time, and I just was not convinced that my mother's hippie oils and plant juices were something that actually had scientific evidence. So what I did is what I always do is I went to look into the books for some answers. And I wanted to see if this, at that time, it was the beginning of the internet. I know I'm dating myself, but we actually had dial-up back then. And just wanted to see if this hype was founded. And what I did find was a discovery of a book that was actually a symposium of integrated medical aromatherapy, where all the essential oils researchers and experts got together in France to discuss quality essential oils. I thought, hey, this looks like a good unbiased source. And I dove into it. And the book contained various presentations from who I now understand to be experts in aromatherapy. These are people such as Pierre Francombe and Dr. Daniel Penuel. The book actually discussed various quality control measures, and it included using certificates of analysis. That was one way to provide evidence of important constituents found in specific oils. Other highlights within the text included the complexity of determining quality essential oils versus just the compounds that are in the essential oils as found on the gas chromatography and mass spectrometry. The component qualities actually varied by the plant location. So this was something to consider when looking at a spectra verification testing, that there have been volatile contaminants that have been found in essential oils based on distillation processes. And there was a talk of benzene contamination. We know that's a carcinogenic compound, and contact allergens that have been found in various fragrances produced from plants. So that's something to be aware of, and why we talked about that in part 2, to sway away from fragrances and more to pure quality essential oils. They also talked about how the chemical composition of essential oils varies with seasons, cropping type, and climate, so not just location, and how topsoil affects components of essential oils. So I was given an opportunity after I researched this to visit the company that my mom used and look at their farms. And I took my book knowledge and kind of went there as a detective to what was actually being done on the farm and what the manufacturer said was being done. And I was actually impressed. They had organic farming, their production was clean, they were doing verification testing on site and with third parties. They had a passion for purity from the seed all the way to the seal of the product. They provided me with confidence that their oils were likely high quality, and I started using them at that time and incorporated them into my clinic when I graduated from naturopathic school. And later on, I discovered there was more testing that I became familiar with. And I always kind of want to update the latest innovations on quality and pure essential oils just to do some comparison and make sure that I'm still using the purest and best quality essential oils. I get great results with the essential oils I use. I'm sure you guys do too, and have done your due diligence that are getting great results. But here are some of the things if you're new or you want to have more confidence that you are using quality essential oils, what you want to ask the manufacturers or find ways to get this information. So one of the things we want to talk about is sourcing and raw materials. So you want to see that the oil itself is sourced from seeds that are organic and grown in pristine soil, because this will affect their chemical constituents or their compounds. Also, where are they sourced, right? An essential oil will vary in their chemical composition based on the location. We know that. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that you want local essential oils, because it could be completely different chemical makeup than what we see in the literature. We also want to ask about their cultivation practices and if they're sustainable. How are they treating the earth? That's important for sustainability of essential oils. We want to ask them how they monitor their distillation time, their temperature, their pressure, and their specs that they use for each oil, because this impacts which components are predominant in the oil. So an oil's chemical makeup will vary based on distillation time, and it can alter their biological properties. So companies can use shortcuts to speed up the distillation time, and then what they do is they just taken synthetics to meet standardizations, and that's not what we want. We want a company that's actually taking the time to do it correctly. And that's why here's where we see why some oils can be, quote, cheap, and some oils you're actually paying for this process. Then we want to look at some of the verification tests, which I'm going to go to in a second. And of course, we want to make sure that they are carefully bottled and labeled using a state of our equipment that does not impact their potency and purity, right? That they're in a good quality bottles, glass bottles preferably, that are tinted and that they're sealed very tightly to prevent oxidization. Now, if we look at, so those are some of the questions, and under, we had this just to review because it's a lot: sourcing and raw materials, cultivation practices, how they monitor distillation overall, what are their verification tests, and are they carefully bottled and labeled to ensure potency and purity over time. Okay, so if we look at the verification testing, I have a list in the accompanying article, so no worries there. You don't even have to fully understand all the chemistry of this. I don't understand all of the chemistry of this. I have a broad understanding. But these are just important tests to ensure that what's in the bottle is in the bottle. It's not just a synthetic fragrance, it's actually pure essential oil. And the components that are found within there are what they are and if they meet standards or not. So again, we're going to look at things. We're going to go through the gas chromatography and the mass spectrometry. The gas chromatography identifies constituents using a temperature-controlled capillary column. It separates the mixtures into individual components, so they use temperature to help identify certain compounds in the essential oil. Mass spectrometry is identifying various chemical components based on the mass to charge ratio of specific ions. Another test is flash point, and it identifies fluids based on which temperature it vaporizes, and the fluid will ignite. So they have references charts for these. Optical rotation is where they measure purity and chirality. So you have different spins of different compounds, which tell you if it's natural or synthetic. And these are based on an angle of plane of linear polarized light, which is rotated passing through the sample. Okay, so it's a purity test. And then there's refractive index, which is a dimensionless number that describes how light propagates through a specific medium. That's another identification. Specific gravity, it's the ratio of density of a substance to the density of a reference substance. Fourier transform infrared spectrometry. It creates a molecular fingerprint through the molecular absorption and transmission of the specific sample. So that's another way to identify. And then getting out of the heavy chemistry, you have contamination testing, which are heavy metals and microbial contamination. Heavy metals are generally too heavy to go through distillation, but you never know how people are bypassing the distillation to, again, do shortcuts. So these are important tests. Again, the references will be in the accompanying article. So you can look and just, you want a manufacturer that's doing his due diligence in more than one way for verification. The company I use uses all of them. And you also want to make sure their third party or in-house testing, they specify that. Now, let's just talk about gas chromatography and mass spectrometry, because everyone's like, their essential oils should have a certificate of analysis. This ensures they're high quality. Again, remember, we talked at the beginning, it does not ensure high quality. It ensures that specific compounds are in there and you don't know what the source is. So it can be helpful for standardization and it can be helpful for purity, but remember, it doesn't guarantee quality or purity. So there's other things to consider with a GCMS. Now, also it's important to remember that I know the company I use actually, and some other really good high quality companies in Europe, they don't have the GC MS available to the public because they're considered proprietary or they're patented as medications in Europe. So that doesn't mean that they're not high quality. Actually, they could be very high quality. So that claim is not true. All right. So I think I've covered the standards versus quality caveat with the GSMSCAs. Very well. So I'll skip to the second point. So you want to know if they're third party tested, if the labs are certified too, where you obtain the certificate of analysis, because any company can say, here, we did our own CAs and just throw it up on there too. So it's the quality that you want to look for. And then you have to remember, unfortunately, we all want to believe people are coming from a good place, but not everyone is at certain times for different reasons. So they might not be honest regarding their results, verification, and production. And unfortunately, this is why too, you want to try different brands and see how your body reacts to them. You, there's ranges on a gas chromatography or a mass spectrometry, a certificate of analysis, and this is for good reason. You actually want to see variations because essential oils, the constituents are constantly changing based on what essential oils up against in the environment. Because you think of the essential oils as kind of the immune system of the plant. And so temperature, time of year, environmental variation, these all affect what the secondary metabolites in the plant or the volatile components of essential oils are being produced. So you want to see this plant adaptation. You want to see variation. If you're getting a CA or a certificate of analysis of a GC and an MS, and there's no variation throughout the whole year, it's likely that they're being cut with synthetics or adding things in order to meet those percentages found on the GCMS. All right, so those are some of the caveats. We've gone over through some of the questions to ask, some of the verification testings, why we can't just rely on a certificate of analysis. And now that we know about pure essential oils, make sure you're using them right for your own safety and for efficient use. So we know that essential oils can be applied topically, they can be inhaled, and they can be taken internally. The only internal form of essential oils I use is by mouth. And I usually, general rule, try not to expand on 6 drops a day unless it's a very acute situation. So just be sure you know how to use essential oils, that they're pure if you use them internally, and that you're being followed by an expert in essential oil. So this would be either a practitioner, someone that is certified in aromatherapy, a clinical aromatherapist, perhaps. You can directly inhale from the bottle, which is one of the safest ways. You can dilute your essential oils and apply them topically, especially these days with so much our skin is up against with all the environmental pollution. People are more sensitive now on their skin. So I know people that apply them what they call neat, which is a French method. They just don't dilute them, but this can lead to sensitization, especially if your oils aren't as pure as you'd like them to be. So I have a chart that you can link to, and you usually want to start with about 1% to 2% dilution and up to 5 to 10% if something is more acute. So those are some of the guidelines. All right. So that concludes our 3-part series on essential oils and quality. Again, I will have the links to the previous 2 videos in the resource section. And just to highlight, choosing high quality essential oils requires research and asking manufacturers specific questions. And I gave you a cheat sheet. This will be your cheat sheet for that. In order to find pure oils, you must consider sourcing of raw materials, their verification testing, and quality assurance testing. A certificate of analysis using a gas chromatography and mass spectrometry does not guarantee essential oil purity, and oils could contain synthetic constituents in order to make up for those different percentages. Remember, there's a difference between quality and purity of essential oils versus standardization of essential oils. So once you obtain your pure essential oils, you want to make sure you're using them safely and mindfully. Okay, I hope this helps clear some confusion. Again, you probably, especially for this video, do want to get the accompanying link to the article because I have all this laid out for you in a little cheat sheet. So you will want to click on that. And I hope that this is helpful for you. I just hope that all of us as essential oil lovers can stop the division of which company is best and just focus on these high standards, accessibility, sustainability, safety, and education of essential oils, because then we can all unite and make these companies even more high quality because we know what we're looking for and we don't fall for poor quality essential oils. I look forward to hearing your comments in the comment section, and I wish you many blessings. And I want to thank you for taking the time to nurture your mind, body, and soul with more essential oil education. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're a regular follower. It helps us get more eyes into the videos and also supports this channel for free education on the clinical use of essential oils. And you will also have the opportunity when you subscribe to this and my newsletter to be the first to learn about news and some of the oil companies that I'm using that I don't post in order to stay unbiased. But if you're curious, you want to join my email list, and I will talk to you real soon. Take care till then.